today's cheese is Queso Fresco. Very simple cheese to make. Here's the list of ingredients: 4 litres of milk, 1/16 of a teaspoon of mesophilic culture, 1/8 of a teaspoon of liquid rennet, 1 tablespoon of cheese salt, 1/8 of a teaspoon of calcium chloride if you're using pasteurised and homogenised milk. Here's the setup. Here's all the gear I need to make the cheese. And this is how I'm keeping the cheese warm, so a bit of a double boiler thing going on there. Now, sanitize all of your stainless steel implements and your cheesecloths. Pour in your milk, and I'm going to add the calcium chloride first because I am using pasteurised milk. Just adds a little bit more calcium, soluble calcium to it, so you get a better curd set. I'm going to turn the heat on, and we're going to heat the milk up to 32 degrees Celsius, which is 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Now we've heated the milk up. You can see there the temperature is now 32 Celsius, and we're going to add the starter culture. It's not very much, just enough though. Just helps acidify the milk. Okay, we give that a good stir. Make sure that's thoroughly mixed in. Now with this cheese there's no ripening period, so you don't allow the milk to rest now that you've added the starter culture. So there's very limited acidification of the milk, so the lactose doesn't convert to lactic acid. So I've stirred there for about a minute, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the rennet straight away. So here's the diluted rennet, and stir all the time when you're pouring that in. You note I've got some globules of cream on top, but they'll dissipate soon enough. So stir that for about a minute, make sure that the rennet solution is thoroughly mixed through. So I'm using a bottom to top motion because I've got a lot of cream on top of the milk. The cream came with the milk because it's non-homogenized. So you do a bottom to top or a top to bottom stirring. And that mixes up the cream better. Now we're going to allow that to rest now so it can coagulate between 30 and 45 minutes. Now I found that I need a little bit longer, so you wait until you get a clean break. So I had to wait an extra 15 to 20 minutes before the clean break occurred. So just use the rennet timings as a guide, not as a rule. So just checking to see the milk is the right temperature before I cut the curd. And it should still be at 32 degrees Celsius. So now we're going to cut the curd into 1/2 centimetre cubes. And I'm going to use my curd cutter there. You can use a curd knife, which I do show you how to use in a second. So that's 1/4 inch cubes. So the curd's quite solid, as you can see, so it's a little bit difficult to get the curd cutter through. There we go, all the way around. So that's the horizontal cuts. Now I have to do the vertical cuts. And I've sped this up a little bit because it takes a while. So as small as I can, so 1/2 centimetre. If you don't get that, then you can cut it with a spoon as you're stirring in the initial stirring phase. Just do your best. Okay, now we start stirring. So over the next 20 minutes, we're going to increase the temperature, only a few degrees, up to 35 degrees Celsius, which is 95 Fahrenheit. So very gently initially stirring it because the curds are still quite tender. If there are any big lumps, you just cut them with a spoon, that's fine. So after 20 minutes of stirring, you can see that the curds have shrunk quite a bit there, and now a lot of whey has been expelled. All this stirring is basically to prevent the curds from matting. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to cover the curds and we're going to let that sit for 5 minutes so it all sinks to the bottom and forms a big mass. As you can see here, it's just curds on the top. Whey on the top and curds at the bottom. I'm going to drain off the whey, but we're going to leave it in the pot because we need to keep it warm during the next period. So gently pour it off. Now, in hindsight, what I could have done is poured it all into the cheesecloth and let that drain very briefly and then pop it back into the pot, but this is the method I chose at the time. Because the curd mass is right at the bottom, it was pretty easy to pour off most of the whey. Now if you need to, with clean hands, just hold back the curd mass and tip out more whey. There we go, nice elbow shot there. But yeah, we'll drain the whey off. Now I've kept the whey because I made whey ricotta, and you can see that in another video that I've made. But whey ricotta is really simple. All we do is heat the milk up to 92 degrees Celsius and then add 1/4 cup of white vinegar, and bingo boingo, you've got ricotta. Anyway, so that's what I've reserved the whey for. Okay, now that's all drained, nearly. There we go. So now I'll put that back on the double boiler. There it is, as drained as best I can. Pop it back on top of the double boiler. It's going to rest a little bit, so I've got it on top of the warm water that I'm using as the double boiler, just to keep it at the same temperature. So I'm going to add the salt now. Here's some cheese salts, coarse salt, better known as kosher salt. It's got no additives whatsoever. And just sprinkle it over. That's 1 tablespoon of salt. Then I'm going to gently stir that through. You don't need to mill it that much. I'm going to let that rest now at the target temperature of 35 degrees Celsius or 95 Fahrenheit for 30 more minutes. Now the 30 minutes has elapsed and you can see a fair bit more whey has been expelled. And it's a solid mass at the bottom of the pot, with a little bit of whey on top. Now we're going to put that straight into our cheesecloth lined mold. It comes out in big chunks, so just pop that straight into the mold. Nice moist curd. So once that's all filled up, so speed that up a little bit, just push it down a little bit, fold over a bit of cheesecloth over the top, then pop your follower on top, and we're going to press that at 16 kilos or 35 pounds for 6 hours. And this is the only pressing the cheese has. Now I'm guesstimating the pressure there. It's about 3/4 closed, the spring that I use, but you can apply 35 pounds or 16 kilos of weight to the cheese, and we'll let that sit and let that drain. So just make sure we've got clean hands. I spray that with white vinegar, make sure there's no molds or yeasts on my hands. It's like an antibacterial. And we're just going to take the cheese out of the mould. Remove the follower and pull it out of the mould. Nice and simple, well formed. It's got a little bit of a ridge on it, but I can fix it up in a second. And that's from the follower where the cheese escaped when it was pressed. So I'm just going to get a sharp knife and we're going to trim off that little bit of raised part of the cheese. Just looks nice for appearance sake. That's all I'm doing it for. Plus I get to sample some of the cheese straight away. This is a very solid curd mass now that the Queso Fresco has been pressed. Tastes nice. So you don't add anything further to this. This can be eaten straight away. It doesn't need to be matured or anything like that. And what you see is what you get with Queso Fresco. There it is there, fresh out of the mould. Nice looking cheese. Now what you can do is you can cut it, eat it straight away, or you can store it for up to 2 weeks in an airtight container in the normal kitchen refrigerator. Here I am sampling some, just to show you what it looks like inside. It's quite moist. It's quite dry on the outside though, but as you can see in a second, it's quite moist. It has a little bit of a squeaky feel on the teeth. I might have overcooked it, but it does taste delicious. Now this cheese doesn't melt, so you can grate it and use it over any Mexican style food like burritos, enchiladas or quesadillas. And there you go, I've got a little airtight container. Looks like it was made for it basically. And you can store that for up to 2 weeks. Now don't forget, you can make this cheese by using one of our cheese making kits. I've noticed that the soft cheese making kit has all of the ingredients for you to use. Just pop over to littlegreenworkshops.com.au and pick up that kit to make Queso Fresco.